Welcome to Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. On this podcast, we journey through the devastating experience of the death of a child. Grief is seldom discussed openly in our culture, and the death of a child makes people feel even more uncomfortable. We approach the topic openly and honestly, speaking to people who have lost loved ones and experts who help care for them. Whether you are a parent experiencing loss or someone who wants to support another going through this tragedy, this podcast strives to offer hope and help.
Welcome to episode number 282 of Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. I'm Marcy Larson, Andy's mom. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Samantha. Samantha is Raiden's mom. Now, if you listened last week, you heard a story of a woman who is 18 years into her grief journey. Today, Samantha is only 5 months into her grief journey. I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate most about the podcast is that I can talk to parents who are at such different points on that grief journey and how we can all still learn so much from each other. I can honestly say that I learned just as much from Samantha this week as I did from Leanne last week. So I know that you will too. Now, I do want to remind you again, if you would like to be on the podcast, email me at marcy@andysmom.com. If you want to see some fun pictures of little Raiden, we talk about that quite a bit in the show, go to my website, andysmom.com, or follow me on social media. That is on Instagram or Facebook. I also want to remind you that if you would like to donate to the podcast, I really do appreciate any donations we can have. That really helps with the production of the episodes, with the new videos that we're doing. You know, I would like to be able to expand and to do even more if I can, if the budget can allow for that. So if you would like to donate money, you can donate that just straight through Venmo, through your phone if you'd like to. That's an easy way to do it. Go to Always Andy's Mom on Venmo. Otherwise, you can go to the website and go to the donate page and donate in that way. I do appreciate all of these donations so much. I also need to clarify something that I say on the episode today. So on the episode today, I talk about a book that I started years ago that I have never finished. Of course, if you've been listening, you know that I am a part of an anthology that is being published. So that book is coming out, and it's coming out on March 19th. So make sure to follow me on social media so you get all the links. You can get that electronic copy right away as soon as it comes out on March 19th. And also listen, because there'll be more information later on how you can get your hard copy as well. But I did want to clarify that because that might not make sense to people who know that I do, in fact, have a book coming out when I say that that book may never finish. Right now, though, I just want you to sit back and enjoy listening to Samantha, Raiden's mom. Thank you so much, Samantha, for agreeing to come on the Always Andy's Mom podcast today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I am looking forward to talking to you. So I've got to tell the audience something really cool. So, Samantha's been listening for a while. When did you start listening to the show?
I think I found it really early on for sure. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks after the accident happened. I found your podcast.
And the accident happened now this past
July.
I was going to say this past summer, I know. So it was in July. Okay. So it's been maybe 6 months, not quite. And we talked about how you started by listening to stories that were relatively close to yours, and then you kind of went back to the beginning and now are listening from the beginning. So because of that, she just recently listened to an episode that I did 18 months after Andy died. And for all of you who are regular listeners, you know that at that 18-month point, I was really at a very personal low, I would say. Things were really, really hard for me. It's funny because I went back and I listened to a lot of different episodes before I did that 5-year anniversary one. And I could hear myself at 18 months being just in a darker place than I was. And so you listened to that one recently, and we had already set up this interview. So this was already kind of set to go. And Samantha sends me an email out of the blue and says, I just listened to you at 18 months and you said nobody's asking you questions about Andy anymore. So she writes to me, sweet Samantha, what was Andy's favorite joke? And about that joke, and then what is something that Andy really didn't like to do? And I tell you, it made my day. It made my day. So I wrote back to her. He had a joke that he told in preschool all the time. The joke was, why was 6 afraid of 7? And the answer, of course, is because 7 ate 9. And he thought that joke was hilarious and would tell it all the time. But it's funny. I then had a conversation with my husband last night, and I said, what joke do you think I said? And he said, well, the bee joke, of course. And I didn't even remember the bee joke. I said, no, I told why was 6 afraid of 7? And he said, well, you needed to tell the bee joke because the bee joke was the one that Andy made himself. So the bee joke is, what kind of haircut does a bee get? And the answer was a buzz cut. And he apparently made that one up totally himself, which is why that's the one that Eric thought needed to be the joke that was told. And I didn't even remember that. But it just goes to show, when you ask little questions like that to a bereaved parent like me, how much it can mean to me and to Eric. I mean, because we then went on to have a beautiful conversation last night about these jokes. We also, what is something Andy didn't like to do? This is a funny thing too, because when we were cleaning the house, he and Peter always volunteered to clean the toilets, but they always acted like I was so mean to make them clean the toilets. And in first grade, he actually drew a picture of himself having to clean toilets. And my mom makes me clean toilets. And I felt like he was acting like I was Miss Hannigan or something, forcing him to clean toilets all the time, when that, in fact, was the job they picked. Because, of course, first grade boys think that poop is hilarious and toilets are hilarious. So anyway, I wrote about that. But it brought back such beautiful memories for me. And now it's been 6 years. So even far out from the 18-month point that I was at. But I couldn't even remember the last time someone had asked me anything about Andy. So I've just got to kind of give a little shout out to Samantha just as you're coming on before we even talk about Raiden, as to how much that meant to me, and as a reminder to kind of all of us, throw those questions out there to bereaved parents that friends that I mean, I'm thinking about somebody right now that I think, you know what, after I'm done with this interview, I'm going to do that too. I'm just sending out a thing and just ask, what was a favorite joke? What was something? Because I know that that's going to make somebody's day to hear something like that.
Yeah.
So just like you made my day. Thank you.
Very welcome.
So anyway, that all being said, now I want you to talk about Raiden, and you just talk about your little guy and his personality and maybe some of the little fun things about him that you asked me about Andy too.
All right, I will. Well, I'll start off with saying that Raiden was a very wanted baby. When my husband, his daddy, and I got together in 2016, we wanted to start a family pretty early on.
Yeah.
So we kind of focused on that. And after about 2 years of not getting pregnant, I was like, this is weird.
Yeah, right.
I went to the doctor and I found out I actually wasn't ovulating and that I needed medication. And so they put me on Bomid and made me cuckoo.
Oh, dear.
But after 6 months, they took me off. And come November, I found out I was expecting. And since we were tracking, I knew when I conceived. It was on Halloween. So his very first nickname, even before we knew his gender, was Oogie Boogie.
Okay.
That stuck in. I have a little Oogie Boogie on.
She just showed a little stuffed animal that looks like a little spooky kind of green, I don't know, ghost, goblin, something.
If you've ever watched Nightmare Before Christmas, he's the villain in the movie.
Okay. All right. So for many of you who aren't watching, who are just listening, picture that now. Okay.
But my pregnancy with him was great. Come my due date, I was in labor, but he was stubborn and stayed until after midnight. So he was technically born on July 20th
Okay.
at 7 pounds and 5 ounces and 19 and a half inches long. He was a very happy boy right off the bat. I did notice that he wasn't hitting his milestones that the doctors said that he should be hitting.
Okay.
And when he started like babbling, he started flapping his hands
Oh, okay.
and his arm. And he loved being spun around on like a whole nother level.
Yeah.
So at about 1.5 years, I kind of knew he was on the autism spectrum.
Mhm.
And at about 2-ish, he was diagnosed with autism with a delay.
Yeah.
And so we started going to occupational and speech therapy, and both of his therapists were awesome, and he absolutely loved going. They had a playground outside, and he would see that, and he knew exactly where we were, and he would beeline it for the door and go up the stairs. He knew exactly where to go to see Miss Brittany and Mr. Nick. He loved them.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
They actually both came to his funeral, which I loved, and they went to it. Mr. Nick at least said that if we do something for him, that he would like to continue to come, which is really heartwarming.
That is. I mean, it's hard when your kids are little, especially, to know that they touch someone else's life is, I mean, I think at any age it's important, but you sort of feel like when they're little, maybe they don't, right? Maybe they haven't had much of an opportunity to influence and affect people, especially like other adults. And it's really cool when they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he did. He was nonverbal, but he definitely made his impact. His hand flaps were definitely his signature move. He did this a lot. You'll probably see it in the video.
Yeah, right. Just flapping his little hands in front of himself.
Just flapping his little hand. Yeah, we call them his happy flappies. We always knew he was excited because he had the biggest smile and he was flapping his hands around.
Yeah.
Raiden loved car rides. His daddy's truck was his favorite, but he loved his Mima babysat him. And if she left her purse anywhere where he could find it, Raiden would go and grab it and take it to her and force her to take him on car rides.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he like took everything out of the purse. No,
Nope, he'd just be like, "We're going."
no, not at all. He hands her the purse. Let's go. We're
Yep.
out of here.
We're going. I don't care. He'll grab his little blanket or his little pillow and he'll be like, "All right, I'm at the front door. Let's
Yeah.
go."
Oh, that's funny.
He loved swinging. We had this like sensory swing in our living room,
Uh-huh.
and he was always on that thing. That's pretty much like how we would get him to relax, and how we get him to sleep a lot too.
Yeah.
The back and forth motion was really his like go-to for his autism. I think it really helped stimulate him in all of the ways that he needed to be.
That's what I was going to say. I think that extra stimulation was probably what he really needed, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why it is really hard a lot of times for kids with autism to sleep well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and he definitely was not a good sleeper.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was a night owl, and he would raise havoc in his bedroom, and I would come in we have a baby gate for his bedroom door because I liked it being open, and he would pile toys on top of toys on top of toys. Very sturdy, and he figured out how to climb over the baby gate using piles of toys. It was interesting what I would come in mornings to find.
That's awesome that he did that. I always find that really cool when kids problem solve like that, right? When they're like, okay, we can just pile this up and get this all figured out. So
yeah. He also loved jumping on a trampoline.
Mm-hmm.
We got him one. Well, it was handed down from his uncle Matt. He used to jump on it all the time. He actually figured out how to unlock the back door and sneak out. So we got one of those chain locks. And he figured out that he could push the bottom of the back door and squeeze his little booty out. And so we ended up having to get another chain for the bottom. He never figured out how to do that, luckily. But he figured it out.
I love these stories. They're awesome.
He figured it out. He also, bubbles, his favorite. We had a bubble machine that was like for parties. And we would have it hanging out of his bedroom window that was out in the backyard. And the bubbles would just be going like crazy. And anytime if I was coming home from work and my husband was already outside with him or my mom was outside with him and the bubbles were going, I was like, yep, Raiden's jumping on his trampoline with his bubbles. Having the time of his life.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I'm pretty sure also, like I was saying earlier before the show started, Pocoyo was his favorite cartoon. I'm pretty sure I can quote that show. If the show wasn't playing, he would make you turn it. My parents got him a tablet for, I can't remember if it was Christmas or his birthday one year. And he was able, I couldn't even figure out how to do it, but he was able to figure out how to connect the tablet to the living room TV and take the TV from us.
Oh my goodness, really?
In the middle of a show, and he just connect his tablet and start playing his cartoons, and we were like, what the heck? And to this day, I can't figure out how to connect like that. His tablet actually
how old was he at the time?
Probably like 2.5, 3.
I was going to say, he couldn't have been over 3, probably.
Yeah, no.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah. He was a very smart kid. Absolutely the smartest little thing.
I do have to say, there are parts of him that remind me of my Peter. My Peter was like that. Like, he would... the other kids never did stuff. I mean, I remember him. I'm sitting in the office at the computer one day, and he comes up to me, and he hands me a Go-Gurt, the little yogurt sticks things. He hands me a Go-Gurt to open it, and I go to open it, and I'm thinking, how the heck did you get this? This is like way up high in the back of the refrigerator, and I turn around, and the refrigerator door is wide open. There's a stool there that clearly he climbed all the way up, reached in the back, gotten that. And honestly, I think it was because he was a real delayed talker. Peter didn't talk for a really long time. I do think that forces you to be a little more independent.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah, it made him have to figure things out.
Because, I mean, I'm hearing this with Raiden, and it's very similar. Like, there was things he always just figured out on his own. Like, he's the first one to climb up on the countertop and climb on the table. The other kids never do that. I think they would ask you. And Peter, like, he's not going to ask you. He's just going to do it and figure it out.
That was Raiden.
And he's the one that wandered out of the house. Same thing. I tell you, he reminds me of that. And Peter ends up now studying in engineering. So I wonder if little Raiden may have been a little engineer at some point in time, solving problems like that.
I bet he would.
Sounds like he's got a little engineer brain. Oh, I love that.
Definitely smart little guy, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
More things about Raiden. As you can tell in the background, he has a lot of stuffed animals. He loves stuffies, and he loved the tags on stuffed animals and blankets. He would always like rub them together. That was a very big like sensory thing for him. He loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a fox blanket that he was obsessed with. It was orange, and it was one of those like little hooded ones. So it looked like a fox on his head when you wear it, and like you could put your hands through it and have little like paws. And he had a bear pillow that was probably just as tall as him. And he'd carry those around everywhere. You'd find him out in the backyard with him on the trampoline. There was sometimes he would like lay his pillow out and cover up with his blanket and like pretend to take a nap. And I'm like, you're not going to sleep out here. It's too cold. But the foxes stuck because his nursery theme was woodland creatures. So we have like a little fox and a teepee and a bear. And then we have all the footprints of the wildlife, like a possum and a turkey footprint and a duck footprint, all that stuff. So woodland creatures was his theme. And then I think orange was his favorite color. He wasn't verbal, but he really stuck to that orange fox blanket. And we're pretty sure orange was his favorite color. Plus, he loved oranges. He loved fruit in general. That kid was a eater. He could eat us at a house and home for sure.
Oh. Well, and I do want to point out the fact that, so we are recording. I am in Andy's room, as I always am. And Samantha is in Raiden's room. And I just thought that was really cool. I could tell as soon as she got on the Zoom, I could see all the stuffed animals in the back, and I thought, oh my word, I think she's in Raiden's room. And that just felt really neat to me, that we both felt like this is a right place. Obviously, I've been doing the podcast in here for a long time now, but the fact that Samantha felt like that was the right place to do this, right in Raiden's room with all of Raiden's little animals and things like that. So very, very cool.
And it showed that our boys had something in common, even though they were years apart in timelines.
I was showing her that all of the stuffed animals behind me. There are loads of them. So yeah, they're the little webkins. I don't even know if they still do that anymore, but they were hooked up to the computer, they would get them all the time. Although they played much more with the actual animal than they ever did with the computer game part of it. They just loved them. Oh my gosh, it was very fun. They all had so many animals, and I want you to all. I mean, if you watch the video, you can watch little video clips over the next week. So as you're listening to this, go on Instagram. If you're not on Instagram, get on Instagram and follow me at Always Andy's Mom, and you will see some really great videos of little Raiden and of us talking. So you'll see all the background of all the things that we have behind us. And then we'll have little pictures of Raiden that come up too when we show that video. And there's a really cool one that I know that we're going to do that has him all surrounded by animals. So go to the website, you can see the picture. But anyway, the social media videos I'm really excited about because those have just been going on, the last several months now. So.
And I follow you on Instagram and Facebook, and I love going on and seeing all the stories that you post and the things that you share about Andy.
Oh, yeah. I probably should do that even more than I do, because sometimes I do it really well and sometimes not so much. So, but I need to do it more and more. That's a good reminder too. Very good reminder. Samantha, you're doing good things for me today. I think I need that. So.
Hey, you're helping you. I love it.
Yes, we're just helping each other out. So, do you want to talk about what happened to Raiden?
Yes.
Yeah.
So every summer we go on a family camping trip. Raiden was born in July, so we didn't go until the following July.
Yeah, when he was a year. Mm-hmm.
He loved the outdoors and he loved swimming. So I thought it was going to be like a great tradition. And my parents went, my little brother went, my grandpa, a bunch of family friends. My mom's best friend is his auntie Nana, which means grandma. And so it was always a big family trip. This time it was very big. We had a lot more people. And he was a bit grumpy and we were a bit tired on the trip.
And this is right around his 4th birthday then?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Mm-hmm.
The accident was, unfortunately, 5 days before his 4th birthday.
Yeah.
And on the trip, before the trip, we were working on his swimming at the local swimming center here in town. And he was doing really great with his life jacket on. But anyways, we went to bed that night. We put him down and my husband and I went to sleep.
And you're tent camping in a tent,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And we made sure he couldn't reach the zipper and we made sure it was secure.
Yeah.
Because we knew he was a figure it out kid.
Right.
But we went to bed and I remember opening my eyes and it was barely light out. And I sat up because I was like, how is he not awake yet?
Yeah, right.
And he wasn't on his cot. So I looked around the tent to see if maybe he got up and fell asleep kind of in a different location because
sure.
he did that a lot. He would find random spots to hide and fall asleep in.
Yeah.
So after I looked around the tent, I noticed that he wasn't in there. Once I realized that he wasn't in the tent anymore, the wind, almost like a movie, the wind blew just enough to where I noticed that the tent was kind of open. And my husband was asleep, and I just remember touching him and saying, Raiden's gone. And Chris, my husband, he jumped up and he told me to run down the road, the opposite direction, to see if he went that way. And I booked it as fast as I could, screaming his name, and I woke everyone up, and he went down the other side to the lake.
Yeah.
To the water side, and that's where Chris found him.
Yeah.
I remember getting back to the top of the road and my mom my mom's friend, his auntie Nana, she was walking up from the water side, and at first I was like, they got him, it's okay.
Yeah, right.
And then she looked at me and she shook her head no. And I think she said that it wasn't good, but I can't remember exactly. And I went to run down to them at first, but somebody, I think her, held me back. And then somebody else told her to let me go, told them to let me go. And so I just ran.
Yeah.
I remember yelling, "Where are you?" Because there was a lot of like brush and stuff and fallen trees, and because here in Oregon we had a bunch of wildland fires, and that was the first year in like 2 years that spot's been open. I just remember Chris screaming no at the top of his lungs.
Yeah.
And when I saw them, my boy was laying in the mud.
Yeah.
And Chris said he wasn't gone, but my brain didn't really comprehend at first.
Yeah.
And Chris was so weak from running and then swimming that he couldn't pick him up to walk him up the side of the hill. So he gave him to me. So I took Raiden in my arms and I ran up the side of the hill, and I think Chris was kind of pushing me up to help, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had a family friend there, and she's a nurse in training, and her husband, who was in the military, I think he had some medical background. He started doing CPR, and well, at first I remember just asking everybody to do something, and somebody got in their car and drove to get reception, to get help.
All right, because you didn't have phone reception there.
Yeah, we were up in the mountains with nothing, not even a 911 call was going through. Once he got in his truck and started going for reception, I remember I took over the mouth-to-mouth part of the CPR. I remember thinking that the air that I put in his lungs that got pushed out was him like coming back.
Yeah.
But in that same second, I knew that he was gone.
Yeah.
So I scooped him up and wrapped him up in a blanket, and I sat in a camping chair for what felt like eternity for the medical people to show up. And they actually didn't take him from me at all. They left him on my lap, and they checked for a pulse, but they didn't find anything. And I can't remember the lady's name or anything like that, but the paramedic lady, she was very, very nice. And I actually remember getting on Facebook and seeing her sticking up for us later, because the internet and people are mean, unfortunately.
They are mean. They are mean, aren't they?
They are. Well, and then the news articles, when they post them, they were very vague, and they always put, leave a life jacket on or use a life jacket. Well, you don't put your kids to bed in a life jacket.
No, you can't.
Yeah, no, like.
And you did what you thought you could to secure, the tent and not have him get out. And I mean, as we talked about with his personality, he is just a very, bright kid who could problem solve and didn't, and I don't know. It's just his personality type was not one to wake up his parents. His personality type is one to like, okay, let's go. I don't need to bug them. I can do this, right? I can leave.
Yeah. Well, and it's actually kind of funny that you said that, because every morning prior, he was bringing us snacks, because that's what he always wanted. He just wanted to eat.
Yeah.
So that's what we were waking up to, was him asking for Cheez-Its or fruit snacks, because we kept all of our food in our tank because of animals and stuff. And so that's kind of what I expected to wake up to that morning, and that's not at all what happened.
No.
Since we were on a mountain camping, they couldn't bring up a ambulance, so the chaplain had to like bring his SUV up, and my mom and I rode with him and my boy down to the ranger station. And my husband cleaned up camp and met us down there, and so did my dad and my little brother. And the funeral home people drove all the way out to grab him, and we followed him all the way back to the funeral home. And for the next couple of days, I think it was like 5 days, they had like a private room and we were able to visit him, which I really appreciated. They were really sweet, and having that closure was really nice to be able to just go and love on him, even though like he wasn't there. His body was there, and I got to just look at his little toes and his little fingers and his curls.
I mean, those are precious moments, and they're gifts from people when you can get them, for sure.
It was only 5 days, like I said, before his 4th birthday, and that day we were supposed to clean up camp and eat some breakfast and go for a swim and come home and then plan the rest of his birthday party. And it was going to be at the beach because we had gone to the beach in like May, and he loved it so much. And so we were like, we're having his birthday here. My husband was set on it. So I had to call everybody and let them know, because I didn't want them to show up to the birthday party that no one was going to be at. And people started seeing the social media news articles.
Right.
And obviously friends and family knew where we were camping, and so they were putting it together. And once one person hears, unfortunately, it's everyone just shares it. They don't.
I know.
Twice. Unfortunately, they don't think about how it's going to affect the person that hears it. They don't think about the person that should be giving that news. So a lot of people heard really fast. We did not get a lot of time to process.
That, I mean, I can really so much relate to that, because when you have a death that is big news, because it was a big news story, as was yours, a big news story, it just gets out. And I remember our pastor saying to us, if you want to call people, you need to call people now, because it happened right around 7:00, and we knew it would be on the news that night. So, by 9, 10 o'clock, he's saying, anyone that you don't want to have find out on the news, you better tell them. And that it's hard to be kind of thrust in that situation.
Yeah. And then to figure out like who you need to call.
Right.
And then you like fear that you forgot somebody, even though like you have so much on your plate because your baby just passed away. But I don't know, just like the thought of finding out through social media, I would hate that.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to make sure that everyone that loved him, which was so many people,
yeah,
they got to hear it first before it got on social media.
And like you said, people on social media can be really, really mean too.
Yeah.
That stuff. And they don't know. They just like judge. I feel like people judge because they really want to think that that it couldn't happen to them. That the only reason it happened is because somebody screwed up somehow. Right? And it's easy to blame you or to blame him or to blame somebody. And if I can put this blame fully on these other people, then there's no way it could happen to me. And I do think that's why they do it. But, you can take all the safety precautions that you want, which you thought you were doing great with your stuff, right? Blocking and making sure he couldn't get to the zipper, whatever. What does he do? He does what he always does.
Yeah.
He climbs up stuff. He figures it out, right? He figures out what he can do. That's just the way he was. And nobody on social media knows that.
Yeah. And like I was saying, like the social media posts are always so vague from like the Statesman Journal.
Sure.
That they're like, it was very much like boy found in the water by his father. Make sure you use life jackets. Like, that doesn't explain what happened. Like, no, I don't want that story out for everybody. But if you're going to post the story, at least have some details and not put more hurt on the family.
Yeah, right. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The funeral home was wonderful, like I was saying, and they made sure that I got to bring him home on his birthday.
Oh.
They cremated him that morning. And we brought him home that afternoon, and we had some family and friends over to help support us on that day because we knew that day was going to be really hard for his birthday. And so we had a little like family potluck. Mostly people just wanted to come and love on us.
Yeah.
And that was nice. It was overwhelming, but it was nice.
Yeah. Well, and necessary, really. You know, it's funny because I do think that having people come and funerals and things like that can be really important because of just having people hug you. I mean, a hug can really give so much support. I felt like every person that hugged me was giving me just a little bit of strength to get through the next 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And even though it was just a fraction, it's really what made it me through. I don't know that I could have made it through without having people there giving me those hugs.
Yeah. And just seeing, I remember we obviously got to the funeral before everybody else, at least the majority of the people.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in the front row and waiting, and I had to go to the bathroom. And I stood up and I turned around. And the funeral home was so full, people were standing in the back. And they had to bring in extra chairs.
Yeah.
And it was just nice to see.
Yeah.
That even though my boy was only 3.
Yeah.
We didn't talk.
Yeah.
He impacted that many people, and that many people loved him.
And thinking about those therapists coming and that he mattered. He mattered to them. And that's what's such a precious thing for us when you find out that your kid mattered to somebody.
And I not look forward, but I looked forward to doing something for his birthday and being able to see Mr. Nick and Miss Brittany because they were a part of our everyday life, and now we don't see them ever.
Yeah.
Because Raiden isn't a part of our everyday life.
So let's talk about these last, well, not quite 6 months. What's it? 5 months now,
Yeah,
right?
Almost 5.
Almost 5.
They've been kind of numb, to be honest.
Yeah.
I remember the first couple days I sat on the couch. And I don't know that I slept, but I just remember always having my eyes closed, but being aware that there was always somebody visiting, which was nice because I knew my husband needed somebody. It slowed down. We don't have many visitors anymore, but his best friends and my best friends, they check in on us, and my mom comes and visits. And I am very adamant about keeping my boy's memory alive, and so I post about him a lot on Facebook and share memories. And at first I was nervous about it, but I've had a lot of people that I don't even talk to that I was friends with in high school that we stay in connection through social media. They've encouraged me to keep sharing because they like hearing about my boy, which I love that. They love that because it made me nervous sharing so much because I didn't want to make people uncomfortable because I know the death of a child is very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
By talking about him, even though it makes me cry, I love it. I love talking about him. I love him so much.
Yeah.
And even though he's not here, I'm still his mom.
Yep.
And this is how I can still somehow parent him in a way.
Yes. Yes. It's very important to still feel like you are an active parent for him, right?
Yeah, especially
and sharing those memories. I mean, it just wouldn't be fair to you to not let you talk about your kid anymore. He's still your child.
But everything is different. And so talking about him also just makes me, because sometimes I sit and I feel like he was almost just a dream. A good dream, but just a dream.
Yeah.
But then I see the pictures and the memories and people talk about him, and it just helps.
Right. And that's why I think those things are important for you to share, because it does feel like, was that even real? Were those almost 4 years real? Because I don't know. I feel like after Andy died, it felt like life wasn't real. Like, this can't be happening. Like, I don't know how many times in my head I had the thought, this is not happening. This cannot be happening. I know this happens to other people, but this cannot be happening to me. This cannot be real.
This isn't
Right?
my life.
This isn't my life.
Yeah.
But I can see how you may go jump the other way a little bit and say, no, this is my life. Maybe that wasn't my life. Maybe that wasn't real. Those 4 years, were they real? Especially because you go through all the time of infertility and all the wanting him and, and all of that. And then that felt like a dream.
Yeah.
Having him.
Well, and prior to the accident, we had 2 miscarriages. We had one in December and then one just in June. So.
Oh, really? So one just a month before. Wow.
I was just barely getting my bearings back from my first miscarriage when we found out we were pregnant with the next one. And then my first miscarriage, it was at home. And that was traumatizing for me and my husband.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all traumatizing, but just the blood loss it's crazy. And then the second one, I had to go in and get a
D&C.
Yeah, a D&C.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't passing on its own.
Yeah.
And that wasn't as traumatizing. It was a different kind of traumatizing, but.
Yeah, I think it's a little different when you look at it or when you don't, right?
Yeah.
In some ways. Yeah, I had to have that too with our first loss. I had to have a D&C, and it's certainly very, very difficult, especially because you go in to have that procedure done and you feel like you're pregnant. You feel pregnant, and then you leave and you're not.
Yeah. And then you're like, okay, and now what?
Yeah, right.
And then the now what was losing Raiden. And it's just like, how is this real? How is this my life?
Yeah.
Three babies.
Yeah.
But never did I ever expect to lose my living one. My earth side. My earth side baby.
Yeah, the miscarriage you maybe understand a little more because that is common.
Unfortunately.
I mean, obviously it's devastating and it's super, super hard. But yeah, never in a million years did you think Raiden was going to be gone.
Never. And then the fear of not having more.
Yeah.
Because of the infertility is scary. I mean, I'm 30 next month. My husband is 35, 36.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're still young, but I don't know.
But it's got to feel scary. I mean, I totally understand why it would feel scary.
I mean, I remember being a teenager and thinking 30 is old.
Yeah.
Now that I'm 30, I'm just like, what?
That is so funny. I was just at the office today and they were literally talking about that. The nurse was like, remember when we used to think 30 was old? Like, yeah, I'm in my 50s now. 30 is a baby.
And like now, I mean, I'm part of like a couple grief groups on Facebook, and I've noticed like a lot of people do start their families later in life, and I have plenty of time to have more babies, but I want my baby back. I hate it.
Yes, of course you do. Of course you do. Because that is the thing that I think sometimes people don't understand too. When you are young and you can physically have other children, they a lot of times just want you to just go ahead and get pregnant and just have another one and just forget about this, which you can't. You can't. You will never, ever replace him. If you have another baby boy, it will not be Raiden.
No.
It will be another baby. And I certainly hope and pray that you are able to have other kids, but it won't be a replacement.
Absolutely not.
No.
I do hope to have more. I have a cousin who lost a baby. She was actually 3. She passed away of cancer. And she has since had 2 more babies. She has had sons. And their bond, at least the oldest son, because the youngest is still like baby. But her son that is 3, I think, he is so connected with his sister that he has never met.
Yeah.
And she shares that sometimes with me and on Facebook and stuff. And it warms my heart so much
Yeah. Yeah.
just to know that even though she's not here, her siblings are still connected to her.
Yep.
And even with Raiden, like my best friend, her daughter, she talks about him all the time. And like we made little keychains with his picture on them. And she put it on her backpack. And she takes him to school with him or with her. And she loves him. And she talks about him all the time. And she sings songs about him in the car. And she'll message me. She's like, hey, my daughter was just singing this song. And I wish I knew the words, but it was about Raiden and how she loved him. And, her other daughter, she's a teenager, but she'll message me. And the other day, she has like a TikTok. And she, like a very locked down teenager TikTok. But we're friends, and she made a little TikTok about him, and I didn't expect it to come across my For You page, and all of a sudden I see my baby's face, and I just start bawling, but I loved it. I know some people probably don't like it, but I love seeing my baby posted and, like, just seeing how much he was loved.
I think especially when you don't have to do it, when you didn't have to ask somebody to do it, they just did it.
Yeah.
That's what makes it more special, I think.
And the fact that they remember him and they want to keep his memory alive.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And that same friend, I was actually talking about wanting to do something because listening to your show, it made me feel like these thoughts were a little normal.
Yeah, good.
Especially early on, I was like, maybe I should wait and not start like this big project, you know?
Uh-huh.
But hearing some of the other moms and how early on they started their project and how like you started the podcast and stuff. And so I was talking to her because Raiden loved bubbles.
Yeah.
And so I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I want to do something in memory of him and have bubbles be involved. And she was like, even if you don't have more kids, just know that my kids and their kids will continue to keep your boy alive because my girls love your boy so much.
Oh, I love that. That's just so amazing. Just so precious. And yeah. And it's funny that you talk about this because you are really, really fresh in your grief. And so the podcast that will have been released last week, I actually just interviewed her yesterday, but when this all comes out, it'll be a week later. So she is 18 years into her grief journey. She lost her son at 18 years old, and she was 18, and it's been 18 years since he died. And she took a long time. She just started now facilitating support groups in the past 6 months. So it took her about 17 and a half years before she decided, it's time for me to do something with my grief. So some people get inspired to do something right away. And what's really funny is the person she's working with is this woman, Tara, and she started an organization, Taylor's Gift. And Taylor's Gift was literally started weeks after Taylor's death. And now the newest member of Taylor's Gift started volunteering and doing stuff with Taylor's Gift 17 and a half years after her son died. So it's just such a variation on what is right for you. I mean, what is right for one person is not right for another person.
Yeah.
So, and if you feel like you want to do something now, great. And if in 3 weeks you think, nope, this is too hard, great. It's totally fine, right? I started writing a book years ago now. I've not touched it in a long time. I mean, I do kind of writing every week, and I feel like that's my writing. And maybe someday there will be a book. I don't know. But it's okay that there isn't now. I think it's all kind of okay. What is just feeling right in the moment. Yeah. So, but the bubbles idea I think is awesome.
Yeah. I don't know exactly. I think so his birthday is in July, so it's summertime.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so I thought maybe doing like a specific time and just have everybody meet at like the park or something because he loves swinging and he loved being at the park. So we can meet at like the park and like have everyone have, because orange was his favorite color, get just a bunch of orange bubbles and just do like a whole bubble thing at the park for like 5 minutes at a specific time or something.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. So my friend Stephanie, she was on the podcast early on. You heard her because it's Kian's mom, and she was on right away. And every year, so her daughter Kian's birthday's in July, actually, and she died in July, just right within days of her birthday, just the same. But every year on Kian's birthday, she goes on social media, and she asks people to eat ice cream for Kian because Kian loved ice cream, and I send her pictures of my family eating ice cream on, I believe it's July 2nd. I should look that up, but I'm quite sure it's July 2nd. We eat ice cream for Kian every single year. And you may have people doing bubbles for your little guy, bubbles for Raiden. And it could be all over the place. Was it last year? I talked about eating the little lemon bundt cakes. Andy loved lemon cake, loved lemon cake. Bundt cakes from Nothing Bundt Cakes was his absolute favorite thing. I had people in Utah eating lemon bundt cake for my Andy last April. And it just feels really special when you have something like that. And I think you could have people all over the place doing bubbles. Heck, I do bubbles here in Michigan, just to kind of help remember your boy and know that he is precious. So I encourage you to do that. And whether it's just you doing something there locally or asking people who can't come to maybe go out and buy some bubbles, preferably in an orange container. I think that's amazing. Well, I just love your loving heart. I started by talking about this so much on how, you reached out to me and obviously are in so much pain. And I honestly feel like you're at this point where that numbness starts to wear off and you almost start to feel it more.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you feel like that's starting to happen to you?
Yeah, I definitely have more hard days now.
Yeah.
Than days, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like last week I had a hard day and I was at work and I couldn't keep it together. And luckily I work for an amazing company and my boss let me go home. I ended up running some errands to keep my brain busy so I cannot come home and sulk in my sadness. But just being able to sit in my sadness and be able to remove myself from situations and stuff, it's nice to be able to do.
Yeah. Well, and I'm really glad you have a very understanding boss in that. And I hope that all the people around you can understand that. And I hope you have lots of your friends and family listen to this show today, because if you are a friend of Raiden's family and you are listening today, know that this time can be really, really hard, because this is the time when from the outside, people start to expect that you're going to start to be feeling better. Okay? They feel like you get this 6 months, but after 6 months, it should be starting to get a little better. And in my mind, what is happening really is that numbness and those numb days, like you say, start to go away and you start to feel it a little bit more. So the day-to-day can be just as hard as the beginning days. So know that being there for this wonderful young family is important to be able to get support. So I'm glad you have that around you, and I hope they just keep being there for you, because it's super precious.
And I'd just like to encourage people that listen in to check on bereaved mamas.
Yeah.
And bereaved dads too.
I
don't feel like they get as much checking on, and even the grandparents, because I know my parents are struggling.
Yeah. For sure they are. And you're right. I think I've asked almost every bereaved dad had on the show. I've asked them this question: what do you get more? How are you, or how is your wife? And almost always the answer is, oh, how's your wife? For sure.
Yeah.
Because they're supposed to be the tough one and they're supposed to take care of you. And people don't ask, how are you?
Yeah. I'm very thankful in the fact that my husband has his best friends that are his brothers and they are very attentive, and they check on
Good.
him, we visit, and we actually picked up playing pool just to get out of the house and
Mm-hmm.
do something, you know?
Yeah.
So we started playing pool with his best friend and his wife. And so we do that every other week or so. We go out and play pool, and they actually work together. So I know that Chris is getting checked on, which helps me in my journey.
Actually, yeah, I was going to say that helps you quite a lot.
It helps me know that I don't have, though I worry about him, absolutely. I don't have to worry too much because I know he has support,
Mm-hmm.
especially because I know that his parents aren't here anymore. They both passed on. And so, and he has siblings, but they're half siblings, and he was raised as an only child. So his best friends are his brothers, and that's really like been his support, and they're honestly my support too. Those boys are great.
Well, that's good. I'm glad. I'm glad you have all that. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing, Raiden. Is there anything else you really wanted to say before we close up here?
One more thing.
Yeah.
My boy was a mischievous little thing, and as we talked about,
Yes.
and his little best friend was 6 months younger than him, and his mama is my best friend, and she is 6 months younger than I am. And so her and I and him and her boy, they were like little mini me's.
Uh-huh.
And watching them be together and their little mischievous brains working, and because Raiden was nonverbal, but her
Right.
son was verbal, and seeing them play together and their little mischievous brains working together, and seeing like how different they were, but how same they were, and seeing how much of each other we saw in our boys.
Yeah.
I loved it, and I just wanted to point out that Raiden's little best friend, Lucas, is going to really miss him.
And it's a little reminder, though, it's when you look at him, you'll see Raiden a little bit too. I know. And in some ways that is good. In some ways that is really hard. I know that because seeing Andy's best friend makes my heart happy and sad all at the exact same time. So I understand that too. So much love to you. Thank you so much, Samantha.
Thank you so much, and very much love to you. I appreciate you so much. I talk about you a lot. I'm like, I listen to this podcast anytime I meet somebody new. I actually just talked to a new therapist today because I've been trying to find the right match. And we were talking, and I was like, I'm actually being interviewed by Marcy today. She has this podcast, and I love it. And every time I talk to somebody that's struggling or that wants to like learn about how to like help me, I tell them about your podcast.
Well, that's awesome. You know, that's funny because I told you about the woman that was on that I just interviewed yesterday, who was on last week's podcast. And how did she learn about it? Because she's doing this virtual support group, and three different people from 3 different parts of the country told her all about the podcast and how it had impacted them. And she's like, okay, now 3 people have told me about this podcast, so maybe I ought to check it out. So that's what we do. That's the best thing, just kind of word of mouth, I think, talking to people about it. And I appreciate it. I thank you for that. Because that's really my goal, is to kind of help people. And, I was just talking to my husband about this last night too. And, he has a podcast for Michigan State basketball. And on his podcast, he gets people to start listening, and then they keep listening like forever, right? You're a Michigan State basketball fan. You just kind of keep listening. And I said, I've certainly got some people that listen forever, that have been listening for 5 years. I know there are some of them out there, but a lot of my people that listen need me for a season. It may be they listen to these shows for a year and a half, and then they feel like they don't need them so much anymore. And that's just how it is. And if I can be helping several hundred people or a few thousand people, whatever it is, at a time in the season when they need it, then that's what I want to do. It's funny because I was talking to Eric about that last night, and he said, you'd be happy if you were just helping 40 people, wouldn't you? And I said, yeah, that'd be enough.
I think that's why I kind of lean towards wanting to do something so quickly, is because I was so felt like Raiden was everything. He was my whole
Yeah.
world. And with his autism, he had appointments. We would go to doctor's appointments and speech therapy appointments and occupational appointments. And now I have none of that. And so I don't have anywhere to put that energy. And I
Yeah.
think that that's why I've leaned towards wanting to do something, to put my love and my energy into something that is still for my boy.
Right. And that's what the podcast is for me, right? That is me doing something for Andy, with Andy, and having Andy all wrapped up in it. But I needed a little purpose for the grief. I couldn't do nothing with it. I had to do something with it. And it helped me in my healing to do something with it. And people's some things can look really, really different. You know, some people's some things are big and some people's some things are little. And I think they're all just the same as important, right?
Yeah, and sometimes the big things you don't react to, and the little things you do.
Right.
And it's like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But know that for me, bubbles are going to mean Raiden forever.
Good. I hope that resonates with a lot of people.
I think that it will. I really, really do.
Yeah. Bubbles, orange, and Pocoyo.
Bubbles, orange, and Pocoyo. Wonderful.
Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful and would like to support the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and comment. To help financially, you can type Andy's Mom, one word, to the number 53555. This provides a link to GiveButter, which allows donations through PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, or credit cards. GiveButter will provide a receipt of your tax-deductible donation, or you can visit the donation page at andysmom.com/donate. Always Andy's Mom is a registered 501c3 and can receive donations through Thrivent Financial and Benevity. Marcy loves hearing from listeners. Please feel free to reach out to her via email at marcy@andysmom.com or on the Instagram or Facebook Always Andy's Mom accounts. Sign up for the email list to get weekly episode links as well as pictures of Marcy's guests and their children. Together, let's work to inspire hope, one day at a time.